Now, everybody thinks that the BMF title is a little bit like goofy, I guess. We've actually had a couple of banger fights from it. Obviously, we've had Masvidal Diaz, which was a bit, The Rock was there, it was a bit weird, but, the fight was alright. Then we had Poirier and Gaethje earlier this year, which was a decent fight as well, good build up, nice fucking wholesome stuff. Battle of the Austins, all of that. And I started thinking who else could fight for it. Maybe Gaethje could defend it against McGregor. The BMF belt is an easy way to main event a pay-per-view when you don't want to put a title on the line. Maybe you want to save a champion for a different pay-per-view. So you main event a big card with the BMF belt and nobody complain. Well, people still complain. But and then I started thinking about what would the rankings look like for this weight class, right? If the BMF was a weight class and you had a champion in all the rankings, the top 15, what would it look like? Now, you have to think about this like you think about a pound for pound list, right? Size parity isn't a thing. Everybody is assumed to be the same size. It's skill for skill. If these two guys fought, who is the better fighter? This is the slick fucking graphic I've made because I'm a Photoshop wizard. We're going to start with number 15. Now, this is the only time I'm doing like a joint fighter entry, so don't worry, this isn't going to be happening again. I just could not decide who to give this number 15 spot to, and I didn't want to leave either of them off the list. Number 15, Kevin Holland / Dan Hooker. I am so sorry for this abomination I've created. Kevin Holland has had more fights than pretty much anybody in the last few years. He's been accepting everything. Dan Hooker, obviously every fight he gets busted up, broken. You can't not put Dan Hooker in a BMF list, but ultimately I think they're both at 15. Number 14, we've got Donald Cerrone. I think in his prime, he makes the top 15 of a BMF ranking. Might be a little bit biased because he's one of my favorites, but he is essentially the definition of a BMF for anyone, anytime, any place. Multiple weight classes, went up and down, beat prospects that were supposed to go on and be something, beat the best, lost to the best, just a general fighter's fighter. Obviously Hall of Fame, tough guy, all of that, BMF material for sure. Number 13, we've got Nate Diaz. Now, Nate Diaz and Donald Cerrone did fight. Maybe it wasn't in the absolute peak for both of them, but it was, it was 2011, 2012, somewhere around there. So you could say that they, that fight happened. Nate Diaz ultimately beat Donald Cerrone on the card, so that's why I put Nate Diaz at 13. He fought for the BMF belt. He is the reason, and Masvidal is the reason that the BMF belt was created. So Nate Diaz, I think he would be number 13. Number 12, I would go Tony Ferguson. Now, this is prime Tony Ferguson, so maybe you could argue that he should be higher on the list. Just for this sake, some of the guys that I'm going to put above him, I think it will make sense why he's this far down on the list. But number 12, I would say Tony Ferguson. Number 11, Robbie Lawler. Probably, again, should be higher on the list, but when you see this top 10, it will make a bit more sense. Robbie Lawler, again, definition of a BMF. Been fighting for fucking decades since he had a hairline that looked like this. Shout out Robbie Lawler, man. One of the most exciting fighters of all time, and ultimately that's what gets these guys in this BMF list. It isn't just about how they are outside the cage, it's mostly about how they are inside the cage. Number 10, Conor McGregor. Went and fought Nate Diaz twice at welterweight, I think you have to put him in the BMF list. He is ultimately making it into the top 10 above people like Robbie Lawler or Tony Ferguson. So if people want to argue that Tony Ferguson and Conor McGregor in their prime, Tony wins, I guess you can make the argument. I always thought Conor in his prime, UFC 205 Conor against Ferguson. I think Ferguson just gets hit way too much. So I'm going to put Conor McGregor at number 10. Number 9, Rafael dos Anjos. Again, another guy, definition of a BMF, says yes to anybody, never turns fights down, just fucking goes in. Great mustache. So yeah, number 9. At 8, I would say Jorge Masvidal. Obviously has to be on this list, again, like Nate Diaz. I would put him a lot higher than Nate Diaz. Again, I have put him at number 8, so he makes the top 10, but I don't think he's top 5 or anything. And that leads me on to number 7, the guy right above him, Yuri Prochazka. Bro is literally fucking Kensei from For Honor in real life. Yuri Prochazka, he sat in a dark room for like 9 years or whatever it was. 3 days in a dark room, but he's into all the spiritual shit. He thinks he's a samurai. His haircut's a bit mad. He definitely makes a BMF list, in my opinion. Number 6, Max Holloway. Busted so many people up. The Calvin Cater thing when he's talking shit to him, showing Brian Ortega how to block. Max Holloway makes it into the BMF list, definitely. Streams fucking Apex Legends on Twitch and then goes in and fucking murks half of, 95% of the fucking featherweight division. He's one of the best in the world. I think Volk may lose to Topuria and go up to lightweight, and I think Max could even beat Topuria, so Max could even have another title run in him, and if that happens, I mean, we've got to start talking about Max in very high regards. For 5, Justin Gaethje, the current BMF champion. Obviously, this list is if everybody was in a weight class, and ultimately, I think if the 5 guys above Justin Gaethje, I think, beat him prime for prime. You know, probably will be a little bit of controversy here, but I'll get on to the next one in the list, who is Frankie Edgar. Frankie Edgar used to fuck people up at lightweight, and when he's probably a natural bantamweight. You could probably say he's a natural featherweight, but I think even then, he's a bantamweight, bro. He fought in a weight class, 2 weight classes above his natural weight for a lot of his career, won the belt, was on a crazy streak. Nobody could finish him. Frankie Edgar, if the size parity wasn't a thing, I think smokes most of the people on this list in his prime. Everybody loves to say Gaethje's your favourite fighter's favourite fighter. I always give that title to Frankie Edgar. So yeah, Frankie Edgar in at number 4. Number 3, now here's where a little bit of controversy will come in, because obviously Gaethje just beat him, but I would put Dustin Poirier. Again, I think if they run that fight 10 times, I think Dustin wins most of them. I know it's easy to say that, you know, I'm a fan of Dustin, and ultimately if you want to swap Dustin and Justin around, that's fine with me. But I think both of them are in the top 5. It's just where they go in the top 5. Number 2, I would say Kamaru Usman. Knocked out Jorge Masvidal in devastating fashion to basically win the BMF belt. And then stepped in 2 weeks notice to fight Hamzat, a guy that nobody wants to fight. So Kamaru Usman is definitely a BMF. And he definitely, without size parity, prime for prime, beats, I think, every single person below him. I think his wrestling's too much, with the power in the hands as well. Full camp, prime Usman, with no size parity, I think beats most of these guys. Number 1, definitely going to cause some controversy here, because you could say that the reason he's so good is because of the weight class he's in. So if you take the weight class away and he's fighting at the same size of all these guys, he's definitely not up here. And I get that argument, but ultimately I'm really high on this guy. I believe in him a lot, and I think even at any weight class, I think he has the skills. He's well-rounded enough, amazing grappler, big power on the feet, and he's one of the biggest punchers in heavyweight. He just proved this. So if he's one of the biggest punchers in heavyweight, then he'd be one of the biggest punchers in any division that he's in. So he'd be one of the biggest punchers on this list. Tom Aspinall, I think ultimately is too well-rounded. I think if they were the same size, I think he beats Usman. I think he beats Poirier. I think he's just too well-rounded. He takes down the strikers. He stands up with the grapplers. I think he's a very well-rounded fighter. I would just like to see his defense a little bit tighter, but a lot of the people on this list aren't massive punchers. Obviously, people like Masvidal could have knocked him out and stuff, but I think Tom Aspinall is right there, number 1, and I think he only loses to, in my opinion, the smartest fighter on this list, the only fighter that could outdo Tom in every asset of the game, I think, Alexander Volkanovski. Obviously, amazing first fight with Islam, really, proved a lot of people wrong. Grappled with one of the best grapplers on earth and hung with him. Struck with Holloway, struck with Yair Rodriguez. He's been on the mat with Brian Ortega. I just think he's tried and tested, and I think without any size parity, everybody's the same size, I think Volkanovski is fucking dangerous. Yeah, ultimately that's it. I wanted to make this one a little bit of a shorter one. I know that the last video was hella long. I apologise, but hey, I like long form content. Hopefully there's some people out there that do as well, and I'm not just making long videos for no one. But yeah, thank you so much. We're nearly at 400 subs. Hopefully the next time I upload will be a little bit closer to 400. And yeah, man, live streams coming soon. Hope everybody has a great day. Thank you very much again for watching another one of my videos. My name's Harry. I talk about fights. Bang, there's a picture of Kamaru Usman hitting the fucking nene. Thank you very much for watching, man. Have a good day. God bless.